Today we're making blueberry lemon sourdough bread. Come along with me. We're going to start off with 1 cup of blueberry juice and a half a cup of warm or tepid water. And I just blended up some blueberries and I'm going to strain this through a strainer. This is optional if you want. I am just feeling a little extra, but you don't have to do this. If you are going to use a strainer, just pour the juice into the strainer and push it through with a rubber spatula until all you're left with is those blueberry bits in the strainer and the juice in the cup. We're going to add that into a bowl and we're going to add in a half a cup of active starter and mix that really well. And then we're going to add 3.5 cups of bread flour to that mix. I always like to sift mine just in case there's something in the bag that I don't want into my dough. This is just a precaution, but you don't have to do it. And then add 3.5 tablespoons of sugar and 2 teaspoons of salt. Mix that in with a spatula, wooden spoon, or I'm using a Danish whisk, or you can use your hands, but it would be really messy at this point. And you're just going to continue mixing until that's nice and shaggy. If it's too dry, add a little bit more water at a time. Once it's well incorporated, go in with your hands and really get all of that flour well incorporated to the dough. Again, adding a little extra water at a time if it is too dry. Grab a bench scraper and work the dough a bit. So we're just going to turn the bowl a little bit at a time, working the dough from the bottom to the top, kind of flipping it onto itself. This is going to help that gluten build. Your hand should be really sticky at this point, and that's okay. Keep going. Cover with a damp kitchen towel or a plastic wrap and let it rest. After an hour, we're going to go in with our first set of stretch and folds. Stretch that dough up nice and high until you feel like it can't go anymore. And you're going to turn it 1/4 of a turn each time for 4 folds, and then work the dough again with your bench scraper. Cover it, let it rest for 30 more minutes, and you're going to repeat this 3 more times. As you're doing your stretch and folds, you're going to find that your hands are going to be a lot less sticky than they were in the beginning, and that is perfect. The dough will also really start becoming stronger here and feel a little fluffy at this point. Once you finish with your last set of stretch and folds, you're going to go ahead and put in another container to watch it rise. And I advise that you get a straight-sided container like this so you can see exactly where the dough's at. We're going to mark it, and I'm going to go for a 50% rise because it's nice and warm in my house and the dough is at a warmer temperature. If it's colder in your house, you want to go with more like a 75% rise, but you have to be careful. You don't want it to overproof, so 50% is where I'm staying. Before we start shaping the dough, we're going to go ahead and flour our blueberries. We're just going to coat them in some flour. This is going to help them not sink as you shape them into your dough. Now that our dough is ready, you can see that it has risen about 50% from where it was before. Again, we want to go with a 50% rise, not 100%. Keep it from overproofing because nobody likes an overproof dough. It will ruin everything. We're just going to take that out of the container and onto your work surface. Now, if it feels a bit sticky, go ahead and lightly flour your workspace. Stretch that out into a rectangle. Now we're just going to go in with our inclusions. So the blueberries coated with flour. Add as many as you want here, but you want to really stay away from the edges as much as possible. We're also going to add some lemon zest. And just make sure when you're zesting your lemon, you really just want to get the yellow part and not the white part. The white part is really bitter. Just zest this all over the dough. And sprinkle the dough with some sugar. Fold one side over into the middle. And if it feels too sticky, get your bench scraper and scrape it up. We're going to repeat with the blueberries, lemon zest, and the sugar. And then fold the last side inward over the blueberries. And then we're just going to fold into a ball, rolling and tucking as you go. And then we're going to shape the dough, make it nice and tight, and build that tension by pushing it and pulling it away. If again it feels too sticky, lightly flour your surface while you're doing this, but not too much flour. You want that tension in the dough, so the counter really helps to kind of pinch it together and build that tension. Once you're done with that, we're going to sprinkle the top of the dough with some flour, as well as a tea towel lined bowl. We're going to sprinkle the tea towel with some flour as well, and we're going to flip the top side of the dough into the bowl. Here we're just going to seal up any blueberries trying to escape, and then pinch the two sides of the dough together. This again is going to help build tension, which you want while it's resting in the refrigerator. We're then just going to cover up with the remaining ends of the tea towel and some plastic wrap, let it rest in the fridge for about 12 to 24 hours. However, at this point, if you wanted to go ahead and bake it, you could. Before removing your dough from the fridge, go ahead and warm up your Dutch oven in the oven at about 500 degrees for about 45 minutes. And also put your dough into the freezer. This will help if you're going to do a nice pretty score for about 30 to 45 minutes as well. Once the oven is ready and has been warming up, take your dough out and go ahead and score. Before scoring, generously flour your dough. This will help give more detail to your score. You can score however you want. I'm doing a basic leaf design, so we're going to do one big cut down the middle and then create 4 leaves here. These are going to be deep cuts to help release steam. And you want to make sure to do your steam cuts at about a 40 to 45 degree angle. That way it gives them a nice ear. And then go ahead and do your fancy scoring if you desire. I'm all about adding a little bit extra texture after the main scoring, so I'll go in and do some light strokes around my wheat stalks just to give it more texture once it's done. With the leaves, I like to just take my scissors and snip the top corners just to help them lift up a little bit. And then we're going to take the scissors and just clip the sides, giving it that nice pretty leaf design. keep the bottom of my bread from burning by adding a little bit of cheap rice on the bottom of my Dutch oven before I put my bread in. I also have a cookie sheet underneath my Dutch oven just because we're using such high temperatures, and then I'll cut away any excess parchment paper. Put it in the oven and let it bake at 475 to 500 degrees until it reaches an internal temp of 200 to 210 degrees. Once it's done, go ahead and take it out and let it cool for at least an hour before you cut into it. Then go ahead and enjoy. Blueberry lemon zest has to be one of my favorites. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, happy baking. Bye.